Okie dokie. This is a response video to RabidApe, and I've been trying this again and again, and I don't know why, but the audio keeps screwing up, or the video screws up, or something like that, and I can't get through it, and this is pissing me off. This is like the 5th or 6th time I've tried to do this. Okay, so I'm probably going to talk really fast, because I'm already frustrated with dealing with this piece of crap, and I'm just going to keep going through. Your video is about the separation of church and state, and you were trying to make it very explicit that you're not trying to get into the debate, just point out something about the debate, and I think that's cool. I'm not trying to get into the debate either, just point out some of the things that I feel about the debate, and the reason I'm making a response video to you is because I think your points, which are when a Christian argues that there's no phrase such as separation of church and state in the founding documents, the Constitution, whatever they happen to point to, your response to that is that Christian values aren't represented or present in the founding documents either. And I think that's a pretty valid point. And it may very well be a great point to bring up during the discussion, but I'm not sure that it furthers the discussion or gets to the heart of the matter. Because, first and foremost, to me, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's a Christian nation. What matters to me is whether or not it's good to have a Christian nation, whether or not it's a way to run a government is by pointing to Christian values. Is that a valid way of running a government? So this isn't a criticism of your point. It's just pointing out that I think it's not going to help in the discussion very much. Because I don't think that's where the disagreement is. There is a disagreement there, certainly, but at the core of it, what underlies that is this idea that the government should be run on Christian values. I mean, if you asked them and said, well, let's say, for the sake of example, we had incontrovertible proof that this nation is not founded on Christian values in any way, shape, or form, what would you do then? Would you try and pass legislation to make it a Christian nation? Would you try, what is a Christian nation to you? What does that have to do with the governments and the laws? So, I usually run through 3 points that I think do a pretty good job of trying to get to the core of their argument and the reasoning behind why they're saying what they're saying. And the first one is, what is government and what are its goals? What do you consider to be the government? What do you consider to be the goals that it should have? And I think that will tell you a lot about the individual and how they view government. Me personally, I prefer, I view the government as simply a service provider. It provides services that a private individual or corporation cannot provide. Cannot or maybe should not. Scare quotes for that. But there seems to be this sentiment, this kind of feeling that I get from the very religious people that somehow, oh man, I'm screwing up the audio all over the place because I'm moving this microphone around. I'm going to try and set it down. The sentiment that the government is there to provide the services, like I've already stated, but also to provide some sort of moral compass somehow by way of its laws or by its founding doctrines or something like that. It's almost like imposing what they feel that the Bible does onto a government. And at that point, I want to question, why do they feel that way about the government? Why does that make a valid government? Why is that a better government than a government that just provides the services? And the second point is, does it make any sense to call what a government is religious? Like I said, for me, government is just a service provider. But does it make any sense to call electricity provider a Hindu? Does it make sense to call your water utility company Shinto? No, it doesn't make sense to do any of that. It just sounds silly because the religious affiliation that any utility provider would have has no bearing on the utilities that they provide in theory, unless they're actually applying those things. But at the end of the day, the point is, I want to get water and I need to pay them for it. That's all that's going on. whether or not they found how they've founded that company or that utility on Hindu values. Does that even make sense to say that? It sounds nonsensical to me. It sounds just worthless. It has no bearing on reality. And the third point is religious doctrines or values a proper way to run our country. Because at some point, it seems to me like it always comes down to whether or not the government should be moral, or the people within the government should be moral in doing moral things, and so on and so forth. Again, I don't care. Because, like I said, government is just a service provider for me, but for other people it seems to be much more than that. It seems to be a very different thing. So, yeah, I guess that's my major point is how do we get at the core of what the religious people are trying to say when they say it's a Christian nation, and why do they consider that to be a good thing? Arguing over whether or not it's a Christian nation is never going to get into the point, the reasoning behind that. And I think the reasoning behind that is where the important thing is. That's where we want to get to, that creamy, nougaty center. Yeah, I guess that's my basic point. And yeah, that I think that's it. I think that's everything I need to say. And yeah, cheers.